It's a BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Pedanticat.
Starline's isekai adventure continues, as it always does on this show. The Doctor has found himself in the land of Equestria from My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. How does Starline react to being in a world full of colorful pastel ponies who tend to burst out in a song with friendship being the most powerful magic in the world? And how much does he hate the fact that this is one of those worlds that unfortunately has its own Sonic XP, i.e. Rainbow Dash?
I think this is the one where he finally finds peace.
Really?
It is a slow and painful process for him, to be sure. Like, he is going to empirically investigate this power of friendship. But if anyone is going to logic him into believing that friendship is a good thing, it's going to be Twilight Sparkle. And in a world that really encapsulates the idea that inclusiveness and patience and understanding can bring people together, it's this world. And I think Starline by the end will kind of go, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. And he chills out and he settles down. Now, there are a few villains in the series that don't, to be sure. But the God of Chaos came around. So if they can convert him, I think they can help Starline turn a corner.
But that's not going to actually stop his isekai adventures, right? He's still going to get murdered.
Well, maybe he has a heroic last stand for his new friends.
Yes. And then he moves on. But then what happens? Does he become more enlightened, or does he reset? You know, like, oh, he's back
that ends in a plush.
Okay.
That ends in a happy plush ending. Starline, no. Oh, don't. Starline, don't. You'll be destroyed. Oh, don't worry. It's not that bad. Boom. And then he wakes up as a plush that is owned by an adoring child that takes very good care of it.
Okay. But all those other alt-universe Starlines are still out there, so guess we gotta keep...
there's a lot of plushes to be made.
Yes, gotta keep sending in those isekai scenario questions. Good old Starline. He's gone through... He's been through the ringer, man. After getting kicked out of Equestria, wow, that's a very presumptuous ending there. Starline has now been isekai to season 1 of Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Would he prefer working with Baron Straxum or Big Mama?
Coin toss, honestly, because the Baron has drive, he has initiative, and he's pretty methodical in his experimentation and method. I think Starline would appreciate that and get along with him rather well. Big Mama is a little more theatrical, but he does enjoy the theatrics as, not necessarily ends to a means, but he can appreciate them to a degree. And she has a degree of conniving malevolence that's right up his alley. So I think he'd be quite happy with either one of them. And honestly, they don't fall prey to your typical arrogant overlord that usually ruffles his fur. I almost said feathers, but platypi don't have feathers. They have fur.
Fur feathers.
Oh, God. That's even worse somehow.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. So Equestria and the TMNT universe didn't work out for Starline, but he now finds himself...
Actually, they kind of would have.
Yeah, ironically enough. Very, very presumptuous of you, Pedanticat, to assume they would not. But he now finds himself in the world of 2017 DuckTales. This may not work out for him. How does he adjust to this world, and which villain would he align himself with? Would he be drawn to Glomgold due to his egomaniac personality reminding him of Eggman? Or would he perhaps find a kindred spirit with Bradford and join Fowl due to Bradford's desire to make the world a more orderly place?
Oh, he absolutely would despise Glomgold.
Oh, yeah. Glomgold is everything wrong with Eggman.
Yeah, just condensed into one faux Scottish duck.
Yes.
No. He would see Glomgold as a sham in a tam from a mile away. He might ally with him just to usurp and take his fortune and start applying it. And that would get him in league with Fowl, who say, oh, wait, we actually have a competent foil to Scrooge here. Maybe we can work something out.
Yes.
And that would be terrifying and effective. And then when Bradford pulls his big end of the series ploy, Starline's just, he washes his hands of it. You turned into a younger self in magical armor and you're doing evil just for the funsies? Nope. I've seen this play out 100 times. Quite literally. I'm done. I'm out. Screw you.
So he just, what does he do? Just unalive himself? He's like, I'm moving on to the next one. I don't even...
At that point, he's had enough access to magical technological advances and has the funding for it. He just makes a portal.
Okay.
He steps through to the next dimension.
Okay. He's just like, yeah, I'll just go.
I'm leaving before I'm made to leave. Goodbye.
I'll be going now. Oy.
Simply cannot stand it. Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg.
Uh-huh. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's too much, man.
Absolutely absurd.
It's too much. It's all a duck blur. And I'm not even a duck, but everyone thinks I am. Oy. The question is, would he maybe, at least for a little bit, actually get along with Scrooge before he realizes that he is a good-hearted person? Scrooge, I mean, at his core. Like, would Starline see him maybe as like, yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. The ruthless pursuit of wealth and adventure would speak to him, but the lack of the killer instinct would be the dividing point.
Yeah.
Why are you saving Glomgold from the great white shark? Let the shark eat him. Trust me.
Yeah, I think that could be interesting, actually. That would be an interesting dynamic for a bit. But, I mean, it helps that the 2017 Scrooge is more overtly a good guy, I suppose, than in the original cartoon. Like, Scrooge is a good guy, but he's more abrasive in the original series, I feel.
And that was the comic version with all the corners sanded off.
Exactly. Yeah. He's way more greedy and stuff in the first one, and then obviously in the comics he's even more extreme. But yeah, he's definitely mellowed out quite a lot.
Well, part of that too is the cultural acceptance of the unapologetic adventure capitalist.
Yes. See also Tony Stark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Back when Manifest Destiny was not a dirty pair of words.
I recently reread the Archie Mega Man comics, and it was even better on a second reread, especially since I could now pick up on all the fun Easter eggs and appreciate how you were setting things up for future arcs that adapted the games. I wasn't in the fandom at the time, but what was it like seeing people freak out over all the things you were setting up, such as the reveal of Blues at the end of issue 8, introducing characters like Pharaoh Man and Dr. Mikhail in Spiritus Ex Machina, and the fact you'd be adapting the Super Adventure Rockman game?
It was really fun and also nerve-wracking, because as much as I was a fan of Mega Man on the fringe, I never really got into the games because I was abysmal at them and didn't have as much access to them. So most of it came from most of my knowledge came from research. And it's like, if I didn't look something up right, if I didn't interpret something right, they're going to know and they're going to take me to task for it. And there were some folks who were not thrilled with stuff like Pharaoh Man and Dr. Cossack showing up before Mega Man 4, because that's not how it happened in the games. But I think the majority saw and appreciated what I was trying to do with it, so that it did feel more cohesive and long term.
Right.
I knew I was never going to like perfectly appease the purists and the hardcore fans and the casual fans, but I think I managed to nail at least 80%.
I think you got most of them. There were very few people who were not happy with the Mega Man stuff because, I mean, like, it made sense for you to introduce some of these characters earlier, like some of the Mega Man 9 Robot Masters, because the point of the Mega Man 9 is that they're getting retired, they're being decommissioned. Yeah. So where have they been this whole time? Well, the comics would help explain that. So it makes sense. It's like this is a great way to set up what ultimately does happen in Mega Man 9. So I was excited. I was kind of amazed about what they let you take from as far as like very obscure media that was never released outside of Japan, like Super Adventure Rockman and things like that. It was exciting.
The fact that we got to do that was wild.
Yes. And as Mega Man fans, you know, we're just happy to have something. Like at this rate.
And, you know, huge tip of the hat to the fandom for being so in depth in their coverage. Like, the only reason I was able to do the Super Adventure Rockman adaptation is because fans took the initiative to translate, record, and show the game. Like, there was no way I'd be able to get my hands on it. And it's, you know, the fandom pretty much helped write that arc.
Yeah, the Mega Man fandom is tireless in their documenting of literally everything, in much the same way the Sonic fandom is. So that's also a very good thing. In the past, you've mentioned your ideal ending for a classic series would be rock and roll going into outer space and embarking on space adventures, with them returning during the Legend era, where they offer Volnut a ride off the moon. But what kind of space adventures have you envisioned the two going on during all those centuries? Do you imagine them being any different in terms of personality, appearance, or internal upgrades?
Honestly, it was more of a reason for them to avoid all that happens in the X and onward stuff. It was to keep them safe. But with that prompt, I would want them to have kind of just fun, rollicking adventures, you know, exploring strange new worlds and meeting interesting robot aliens and bringing peace across the cosmos in adventures that never get darker than like Mega Man 8. Keep it colorful and bright and fun, and yeah, maybe some upgrades along the way because, you know, this planet has extra gravity, or this one is so humid it actually messes with their internal electronics, but, you know, keep them recognizable. You know, in this fanciful world where I get them to bring Volnut home, I would want their rocket ship to touch down, them to step out, and there would be no question which incarnation of Mega Man this is. I would want them to step off the rocket and say, hey, you need a lift, and everyone just to lose their ever-loving minds because it's them. Their boy and their girl are home.
Yep.
I want it to be just the biggest celebratory cheer heard around the world.
So heartwarming. Oh, so good. So wholesome. In issue 49 of Archie Mega Man, you had several of the robots from Mega Man 3 decide to be shut down since some of them, such as Top Man, Magnet Man, and Gemini Man, stated that they were too specialized to do anything. But if Light helped build those robots with purposes in mind, how was that the case? Shouldn't they have industrial functions just like Hard Man and Snake Man?
Yeah, it was more find an excuse of why they're shutting down so they can show up in the robot museum in 7?
7, yeah.
Yeah. The rationale for that one, I will admit, is not as airtight as I would have liked. But for them specifically, because they were a little weirder, you could kind of take it at face value. I'm not going to try to defend it too hard. You could argue that, you know, maybe Light helped with the core design, but Wily over-specialized them in his final approach. But I don't know if that would hold water.
I just chuckle at Hard Man. See, you do too. I know it's a tricky line to ride, given how Robot Masters aren't supposed to have free will, despite all the contradictions. But would you say that the reason why some of the Wily bots from Mega Man 2 were able to choose to be reprogrammed whereas others such as Quickman chose to shut down had to do with their personalities. Quickman's refusal to be reprogrammed seems to tie in with his pride over being a weapon that was made to destroy Mega Man.
Yeah, you could hand wave it away to say it was within their base programming to not be cooperative and open themselves up for reprogramming. You know, that they are so doggedly obedient to their original purpose because that's what they were programmed to do, where others might be a little more loosely defined. It, like you said, it is a fine line, and I don't know how far you can really walk it.
Yeah. Free will in Mega Man is a tricky thing, because
I mean, especially when you get to stuff like Sheep Man,
yeah,
who like got bored and picked his noon job. Given all the time, I think I've come around to the idea that during the classic era, there was the beginnings of truly sapient synthetic life, but nobody was really prepared to realize it. They were so used to robots and robot masters being so lifelike that they just kind of said, it's just part of the programming. It's not really alive. It's a robot. What are you talking about? Look at it. It's a sheep. It's not a real thing. It's not a real person.
Once they did become sapient and sentient on their own, then it just kind of happened, and no one even thought anything about it. Yeah, that makes some level of sense.
And that, X and Zero and the Reploids are more of a branding thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, that's one particular approach. I don't know if I'm set on it, but it's a thought.
The Mavericks, they just have bad marketing. They're not evil. They just need better ads.
Sigma, what are you doing? It's my big blockbuster campaign to prove to the humans. No, that's not what that means.
No, don't literally bust the block. Don't do it.
Oh. Well, I just picked a whole basket of oopsie daisies.
That's pretty good. All right, I guess we're going back to Sonic now. If the official memo is that Team Dark isn't friends, how come Rouge shows concern for Shadow and Omega on several occasions within IDW? Don't get me wrong, I love seeing Rouge show concern for others, but we only ever see it from her side. Do Shadow and Omega care about Rouge's well-being, but just aren't allowed to be expressive about it?
There's a lot I want to say on this, but it would step on the toes of other stuff. So let me just say #KnowingSmile on this one.
Okay. Interesting. Are you sure you should be smiling? Is it like one of them cringy smiles where you're not sure how the reaction is going to be? Or is it... I
mean, as of this recording, I'm still waiting for everything to be like finalized for finalsies. But this is a happy knowing smile if everything falls into place.
Okay, as long as it doesn't fall over flat on its face, then I guess maybe it's okay. What does he know? What does he know? Does he know what he's cooking?
Goulash.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. Or does it?
It does not at all.
No. So we know that Wave is a mechanical genius, given her work on her extreme gear and always maintaining the blimp, but just how smart is she outside of those areas? Like, is her intellect on the same wavelength as Tails and Eggman? For instance, we saw Eggman and Tails work together on the multi-portal generator in issue 26, while Wave observed from the sidelines.
I think it's to be determined. On the one hand, I would almost want her to be specialized. Like, she is a pro in her field, virtually unparalleled, but that she's hyper-focused, that she, in her own selfishness, hasn't broadened her horizons and falls short for it. On the other hand, I feel bad doing that to, like, one of our extremely rare, purely antagonistic female characters.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, she's kind of a bad person, so she doesn't deserve nice things. I don't know. Officially, I don't know if it's been defined one way or the other.
Alrighty. Let's say Tails finally gets to make his transition from being Sonic's Robin to becoming Nightwing. How would you approach writing an ongoing Tails series?
That's the nightmare. Because the compelling thing about Tails is his continuous search for betterment, to reach Sonic's level, to not be the sidekick. And once he achieves that, he's just smart Sonic that flies. What is the angle then? What does he want to do? What is his new aspiration? What is the next goal he is trying to reach? And I don't know what that is right now.
Tails in space.
He's the one piloting the ship that brings back rock and roll.
I mean, if you're going to adapt the Metarex saga, you might as well go with that. Maybe he wants to become more intelligent than Eggman or something, but he already is, so I don't know. I guess as long as
once you
I was going to say, as long as Sonic doesn't get a Jason Todd sidekick as a follow-up, then we'll be all right.
I mean, the thing is, if you take away the limiter of he is still learning and growing, Tails is incredibly OP.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most of the characters are, if you take away the certain thing that holds them back.
Him especially.
Like Silver, though, too. Yeah. It's naivete. But Tails, yeah, you're right. You're not wrong about that one, too.
Yeah, okay. I see where you're coming from. I feel like it's more of an intrinsic issue with Tails. Like Silver being a little more on the ball, we've seen that before. He's gotten his act together briefly, and he's all right. His power set is just broken by default, but Tails himself is a Swiss Army knife, and once he realizes he controls what comes out of that Swiss Army knife, we're in trouble narratively.
Yeah, I guess 9 from Prime is like an example of that in a way. But, I mean, also Blaze is, like, super overpowered. The only reason why she's not is because she's not there most of the time. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that's really the case of most of the characters, honestly. Like, if they really just let themselves, like, just fully go crazy, then, yeah, they would just be unstoppable. It's kind of insane, but oh well. I mean, that would be fun if that would happen, but I don't know how you'd go back from that. All right, how did Eggman manage to take control of the Battlebird Armada in post-reboot exactly, given their resources and manpower? Lord Cuckoo seems too proud to allow himself and his forces to be enslaved by Eggman.
I think the thinking at the time was just Eggman beat him, just straight up. In a fair fight, he proved to be better. And the Battlelord hates it, and he will turn against him the moment he sees a sign of weakness. But as proud as he is, he also wants to live. So he'll bear the minor indignity of ruling all the skies in service to Eggman rather than, being dead and ruling nothing.
Mm-hmm. Next question. In recent years, more kids' media has taken the time to reflect on the fact that having young protagonists almost constantly dying and going on life-threatening adventures is going to take a toll on their psyche, with Steven Universe Future being one example. What do you think of this recent trend, and would you like to see it be implemented more in Sonic?
Going in reverse order, no. Part of the fun and the whimsy of Sonic is it is largely consequence-free. You can leap off giant loop-de-loops. You can free fall from space. You can be shot 100,000 rounds, but you're okay because you have a ring. That's just, it's part of the fun.
Sonic can be captured for 6 months and tortured and then come back completely fine. No mental scars at all. What do you mean? My eye's not twitching. You're twitching.
There needs to be some consequence to be sure, but if you make too many real world parallels and consequences, then it becomes just too realistic. It's not escapist fantasy anymore.
It's too real.
It's a fine line. I think it may have been crossed in all Sonic media one way or the other, and I'm probably guilty of it myself every now and again. But in general, I think Sonic should remain whimsical. And with a story that cannot go anywhere, in the long term, you would be raising questions that could never be fully addressed or resolved. Like Steven Universe is different. Steven was a child who grew up into a young man. That's a whole arc. Sonic, after the aforementioned 6 months and having a birthday and goodness knows how many adventures, hasn't aged from Sonic 1 to Sonic Forces. Frontiers. Keep forgetting that's the latest game, Frontiers. So...
yeah, Frontiers was a thing. It happened. It was not just a dream, Ian.
It was an experience. So it cannot tell the same kind of story. There is no end to Sonic. There's barely any beginning. Sonic just is. It's a different type of narrative. So no, I wouldn't want to see that there. As for it being in children's media right now, I'm a little divided because on the one hand, it is good to have the message of actions have consequences and to treat your protagonists as people that have to overcome not just the big bad of the week, but, their own personal struggles. On the other hand, I feel like it's coming from a generation that grew up on Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is like the quintessential deconstruction of young protagonist put through hell and trying to recapture the strength of that moment without becoming the same psychedelic horror that Ava was. Not to say that to, undercut anything like Star or Universe, but I don't know if it's a lesson that we have to address every time, or maybe that it's been brought up so frequently recently, it feels a bit fatiguing. I don't know. I don't have a particularly well-formed opinion on it, I guess. So I'm just going to ramble into the mic until Kyle cuts me off mid-sentence and moves on to the next question.
Fine. If that's what you want me to do, I'll do it.
Oh, have fun editing this one.
Whenever the hooligans do get to make the jump to modern and you're allowed to use them in IDW, what would Amy and Bark's relationship be like? Would they still have a frenemy relationship with each other?
I don't know. It would entirely depend on what the modern versions are like. Like the Chaotix were largely blank templates. We had smatterings of characterization, wildly different between the East and West versions, and then they were wholesale remodeled with heroes. Now, it's a different scenario because Classic has returned as a presence, and we have seen more of the hooligans in other Classic media. So it's not like they're as obscure as they once were.
Right.
Maybe it would continue, or maybe they would come into the modern era in a revamped fashion, and the question is what happened between now and then? I don't know.
Well, maybe someday we will know. In the meantime, though, we got more questions. A lot of folks have asked about Belle and Sage's dynamic, but how do you envision Sage's dynamic with Gemerald? Along with being siblings, both are AIs that were created for a specific purpose, only to evolve beyond their programming and care for those closest to them.
Oh, she hates Gemerald.
I mean, he's a traitor.
Like, even before Tails, fixed him up, he went full treasonous robot and then stayed with the fuzzy buddies. No. He is the black and gold sheep of the family.
Yep. All right, and our last question from Pedanticat. While the two may be arch enemies, Sonic and Eggman have teamed up on numerous occasions, with you, Ian, even getting to write some of their team-ups. What are your guys' favorite Eggman and Sonic team-ups? And Ian, what do you enjoy about writing their team-ups? I loved how you had Eggman insist that him and Sonic working together in Frontiers was not a team-up.
That was actually more of a Sega direction, actually. I tried to do another one of those deep cut, we're going to have to work together again. It's like, no, they would never work together. So think of another reason. That's like, but they hit, you know what? I'm not going to fight this one. It's funnier to have Eggman say, you know what? You're inducted into the Eggman army. There, that's my rationale this time.
It is funny.
It is funnier. So, one of those moments where the note makes the final product better. I think my favorite team up was SA2. Not just Eggman and everybody, but both sides teaming up, and I don't know, something just about the build up to that moment and the spectacle of the kind of baton pass gameplay and everything. I don't know. That still gets me hyped thinking back on it. That was cool. I don't know if anything has quite matched that level of hype in my mind.
I'm trying to think of other times where it's happened. Like, Sonic Heroes, I guess, tried to do it again, but it failed spectacularly because there was no build up to it in the same way that SA2 did it.
I mean, there's technically a little bit of it at the end of Sonic Advance 3.
Yeah.
They called a truce against Knuckles Jack or Energy Knuckles and the old Archie stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other instances, but I'm kind of blanking on them. But it feels like Adventure 2 was the only time where we really got to see them all working together for an extended period of time, not just within a cutscene or a final boss segment. I wish we could have seen more of Eggman interacting with Sonic at the end of Frontiers, but that just wasn't within the design, so can't really fault it there. And it's fun because, they can't stand each other.
I know, that's what makes it great.
They are diametrically opposed, so they are clashing as much as they are cooperating, and that's just fun.
And the funny thing is that they work really well together, but they obviously hate each other. But I mean, they know each other better than anyone else. So, if they did work together for real, they would be unstoppable.
You may know what I'm going to do, but I know what you're going to do, Rodent. Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end this, because we don't have any more questions.
All right. Thank you to Pedantic Get for sponsoring this BumbleKast Mini. If you want one of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the BumbleKast.
See you next time.